And really, it was what RDI was talking, we were talking to a lot of people, and what we were hearing is that people really wanted to have some kind of shared vision around the economy. And particularly that people wanted it to be, you know, the whole length of the valley, so a regional vision as opposed to just, you know, community by community, with the thought that really this region operates economically as a unit, and it will be so much stronger if you're coordinated as a whole region. The other thing that we heard is that there's kind of 3 focus areas that people are really interested in. The first is arts and culture, another one is nature and recreation, and then the third is a small business economy. So really focusing on how small businesses can thrive, and businesses that are kind of not only tourism facing, but kind of serve the community too. And then the other thing we heard is that people are interested in the Main Street approach to economic development. At the last meeting, we went into that in quite a bit of detail. So we're not going to spend too much time today focusing on that, but there is a handout on the table, and we have more. Like we didn't put enough for everyone, but that's because people tend to leave them on the table, and we just didn't want to waste paper. But we do have plenty for everybody. If anybody doesn't get a handout, you can ask. And I think just a note about Main Street. I think when people think about Main Streets, they think of a typical community that maybe has a downtown area, and you know, the Mackenzie River area doesn't really fit that mold. And so we also talked about the fact that Oregon now has a regional Main Street structure. So if you're a region, you can apply to be in the Main Street network, and that it just can help, you know, different communities in a region kind of share, coordinate and share resources, and that, you know, this is really a kind of organizational model for doing economic development work, and it's not just about, you know, a downtown, you know, a singular downtown area. So it's still, I think, a model that's very relevant and very interesting for this region. Where we are in this process of this economic visioning is we're at number 4. So about a year and a half ago, we started the planning. We did 3 community listening sessions in around April and May of last year. There was a community survey that went out in January. And then this is the second of 2 community workshops. So the first one was in February, and this is the second one. And then after that, we will draft a plan. And then this is kind of, you know, sets the groundwork for then starting to work on the projects and the priorities that bubble up through this process. Okay, so, all right, now we're going to talk about the economic vision for the region. All right, so in the last meeting, and also through the survey, we've crafted the words here, but we've taken those words from what people in this community have said. And we're also not going to spend a lot of time on this today, because sometimes we've found that, you know, you can spend a lot of time on this and then you don't get to some really meaty stuff. But there is a handout that you have at your table, which looks like this, the Mackenzie River Area Economic Vision. And so this has the draft vision statement at the top. And we are interested in getting feedback, if you have feedback for that. And it's up on the wall over there, but it's also on your handout. And if you want to, anytime during the meeting, you can write any comments on that sheet. You can write smiley faces or frown faces if you just want to express an opinion. You can reach out to Ken or RDI later on. You can suggest your own vision statement. So we're still very open to changing that, but so far, this is kind of what we've captured for the region. And again, we're not going to spend time today talking about it, but that doesn't mean it's finished. It just means that we want to do some other things. So I guess the other thing to say, like this sort of Mackenzie River Area Economic Vision, This is the document that we'll be using a lot today. This is sort of our worksheet for today. So if you don't have enough versions or copies of this on your table, just let us know, we'll get you more. But it's organized into the three focus areas I mentioned earlier. So that's the small business and entrepreneurship, arts and culture, and nature and recreation. Then under each of those focus areas, we've also, based on the input from the surveys and the listening sessions, we've distilled these goals, like a certain number of goals under each of these. I think there's usually 4. Looks like there's 4 under small business and entrepreneurship, 3 under arts and culture, and 3 under nature and recreation. So again, those are, we talked about those a little bit in the last meeting, but those are kind of something that we've distilled from all of the input. And then today, what we're going to do is really focus on these strategies that are underneath, and sometimes they're actual projects. We're also going to talk about transformational projects for the region. So today is focused on strategies and transformational projects. So first I'm going to go over the goals that were kind of emerged from this process. So for small business economy, there were 4 goals that emerged. The first was more restaurants and good food. The second is business for locals. The third is vibrant downtowns and more shops. And the fourth was more support for small businesses. And again, this was a grouping of a tremendous number of ideas and input. So we just kind of tried to organize everything that we heard of the, I don't know how many, hundreds of ideas. We sort of organized these and put these into these groups. Okay, the second area is arts and culture. And so the Discovery Center development we talked about because it got so many notation, people saying that they're interested in that. There's arts support and infrastructure and arts events and promotions. So those are the 3 areas that emerged there. And then under nature and recreation, outdoor recreation spaces and infrastructure, recreation opportunities and events, and stewardship and ecotourism. So these are still pretty broad categories. But what we want to do today is actually we're not going to spend a lot of time with us talking. We're going to spend a lot more time with you guys, like sorting through these and prioritizing. So let's see. I'm going to turn it over to Hannah.
All right. So this is where the fun starts. You get to prioritize these strategies, and some of them are projects, like Amy talked about. So we're going to divide into 3 groups. You might want to move. So sorry that if you're already feeling settled, but we're going to break into the groups based on the focus area. So go to the one that you're most excited about. Again, we have arts and culture, the nature and recreation, and the small business economy. So we'll do arts and culture in this corner. You don't have to move quite yet. I'll give you a few more instructions. And then the small business would be in this table, and then nature and recreation will be over here. So what's going to happen is we already wrote out the strategies, and they match the strategies on the sheets that you have. So there's one strategy per sticky note. So what you're going to do as a group is an impact feasibility analysis. So what we want you to do is think about each strategy on its own. So for example, in my hand I have the nature and recreation. The strategy is more public recreational locations. So you could even drill down further, like, oh, okay, what exact location are we thinking of? And then you're going to think about it in terms of feasibility and impact. So feasibility is, what's the likelihood we actually get it done? Impact is, how much will this affect our economy, our community, kind of impact generally. So maybe some of you have done this before, maybe you've all seen it before, but if not, that's okay. So as things get more feasible, you're going to put it more to the right. As things are less feasible, you put it to the left. And then as things are more impactful, it goes higher up on the chart. As it's less impactful, it goes lower on the chart. So for example, small business technical assistance is one of the ideas. If you think that's highly feasible and highly impactful, you're gonna put it to the right and to the top. It's gonna go in the right, upper right quadrant. Another example is a fast food chain, which, by the way, most of your high schoolers wanted a fast food chain. Specifically Chipotle. So let's say that turns up in one of the strategies. You're going to think about that, and maybe you think it's actually like could have a pretty big impact, but it's not very feasible. So you're going to put it up to the top of the chart, but to the left because it's low. Okay. So you're going to do that for each of the strategies that we're going to give you at your table. Then,
Just a quick question. Can you define impact? Is that a revenue impact? Is it probably defined per each category?
I think it's defined for each category, and it's defined by, community members and people in this room. So it could be, like this small business TA, that could be.
Amy, will you use the mic?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So it should be defined by the people who are posting it. And so I think it depends on, what is impactful to all of you who are interested in this. So I'm trying to think of a good example. In some cases there may be a monetary impact. In some cases it may be more of a cultural, social impact. So yeah, I'm not gonna answer your question. One of those answers.
and I'll make one more comment. Hopefully you can put these kind of in relative to each other. So what we don't want to see is everything is highly feasible and highly impactful. Right, so some of them, you're going to look at them next to each other and like, oh, this is more doable than this one. So it doesn't mean that, does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay, so we'll give you 15 minutes to work in your groups, and feel free to move to the area that is most